During a mission, the X-Men encountered Madelyne Pryor, who bore a strong resemblance to the late Jean Grey. Throughout his appearances, many people believed that it was Jean, who had returned to life. To add to Madelyne's mystery, according to Madelyne, she was the only survivor of a plane crash that occurred around the same time the Phoenix left life on the moon. Later, it would be revealed that all those memories were a lie. In reality, he was a clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister. The villain believed that by combining Jean and Scott Summers' genes he would create an extremely powerful mutant. Sinister planned to use this descendant to destroy Apocalypse. Unfortunately, the experiment was a failure as Madelyne did not develop mutant powers like Jean did. Sinister decided to leave her in suspended animation and classified her as a failed experiment. After Dark Phoenix died on the moon, the bird, who had stolen part of Jean's soul, decided to return this fragment to the real Jean, who was recovering at the bottom of the sea. Jean instinctively rejected the Phoenix and it traveled the world. Over time, the cosmic entity became attracted to Madelyne, as she was an exact genetic clone of Jean. The Phoenix Force sought the best option, giving a spark of itself to Madelyne, granting her life force and some of Jean's memories. Madelyne met Scott in Alaska. From the moment of their first meeting, Scott was immediately attracted to Madelyne because of her physical resemblance to Jean. Mr. Sinister had also played a role as matchmaker, giving Madelyne a personality he knew Scott would like and pulling the strings for the two to meet. Scott was surprised by how much Madelyne resembled Jean and the two began a romantic relationship. Cyclops was tricked by Mastermind into believing that Madelyne was the Dark Phoenix, but in the end, they managed to defeat the villain. After dating for a while, Scott proposed to her and the two got married outside the X-Mansion. During their honeymoon in the Caribbean, Scott and Madelyne were attacked by a shark and a giant squid. This led to Scott leaving the X-Men, realizing that he would rather start a family than be a hero. Early in their marriage, Scott and Madelyne were flying with a geological survey team through Alaska when they encountered a mysterious storm that forced them to make a crash landing. As part of one of his evil plans, Loki granted powers to all the mortals on that plane, including Madelyne, who became Anodyne. In this form, he was capable of healing any wound, illness, and physical defect. In the end, Loki was stopped and these powers were revoked. After this incident, Madelyne revealed to Scott that she was pregnant. Scott decided to rejoin the X-Men when he discovered that Magneto had joined the team. Madelyne agreed to live with him in the mansion, but began to feel that the two were growing apart. While Scott fought Fenris during Magneto's trial, Madelyne gave birth to their son in the mansion's kitchen. This boy was named Nathan Christopher Charles Summers after Mr. Sinister, Scott's father and Professor X. After this, an internal dispute began between Scott and Storm for the leadership of the team. Unconsciously, Madelyne activated her powers for the first time to influence the outcome. After losing, Madelyne convinced Scott to move with her to a cabin in Alaska and live out their lives there, a subconscious suggestion implanted by Sinister to facilitate the boys' kidnapping. Time passed and Madelyne began to get bothered by the fact that her husband was never home and that she still missed Jean. Madelyne was also upset because deep down she knew that he only married her because of the resemblance she had to his ex-girlfriend and agreed to live with her and her son since he had lost leadership of the X-Men. Their relationship finally fractured when it was revealed that the real Jean Grey was alive. Scott decided to join her and the rest of the original X-Men to form X-Factor. Madelyne was heartbroken over her husband's abandonment. Maddie was hired to fly a cargo plane to San Francisco for a large sum of money, and at the last minute, she decided to take Christopher with her. Mr. Sinister, reacting quickly to Jean's return, attempted to eliminate Madelyne before the truth of her creation was revealed and sent his marauders to kill her and kidnap her son. Maddie used her latent psychic powers to defend herself, but lost baby Christopher to her enemies. Maddie was shot several times and left for dead, then taken to a hospital in San Francisco where she remained in a coma for several months. Upon recovering, Madelyne called the X-Men for help and they discovered that all records of her and Nathan had been erased. At the time, Alex Summers, Scott's brother, had broken up with his girlfriend Polaris. He identified with Madelyne and they both shared a moment. Madelyne joined a new incarnation of the X-Men as tactical support. During a mission, she found information from X-Factor and discovered that Scott and Jean were together. This revelation caused Maddie to faint, and in her dreams, the demon Sem appeared before her and tempted her to gain enough power to take revenge on Cyclops and Jean. Madelyne accepted and received an increase in her psychic abilities. On top of that, he gained the ability to transfer his mind and powers to other bodies. The ability to mentally induce his victims, in addition to the ability to use demonic magic with which he is able to heal wounds, revive the dead and summon demonic entities. Madelyne pretended to be on the X-Men's side and helped them for a short time. At one point, he assassinated several magistrates in Genosha. When she came to, she did not remember anything about the event. Over time, Madelyne lost her mind and provoked Alex into starting a romantic relationship with him. Madelyne joined the demons Sem and Nestor in their plan to create a portal linking Earth and the dimension known as Limbo. In exchange, the demons would track down the Marauders to take revenge for Nathaniel's kidnapping. Later, Madelyne went to Jean's grave where she cursed her for causing Scott to leave her. Jean's parents showed up to pay their respects to their daughter. Maddie took advantage of the opportunity and turned them into demons under her control. Nestor appeared and took Madelyne to the orphanage where Alex and Scott grew up. There he found a laboratory where Mr. Sinister revealed to him that he was a clone of Jean Grey. This revelation angered Pryor, who used his powers to subdue Sinister and recover his son. Finally, Madelyne lost her mind and returned to New York to attack Jean and Scott, whom she blamed for her miserable existence. She took control of the X-Men and forced them to fight the members of X-Factor. When Scott tried to help Madelyne, Alex intervened, stating that Scott lost all rights to Madelyne when he abandoned her. When Nestor appeared and tried to take Madelyne, Scott saved Jean and Alex set off to rescue Madelyne and the baby. In the end, Alex succumbed to the charms of Madelyne, who now called herself Goblin Queen, and agreed to ally herself with her. After Nestor's defeat, Goblin Queen attempted to sacrifice Nathan and 9 other mutant babies to open the portal to Limbo. She locked herself, Jean and Nathan in a force field where she reveals to Jean that she is a clone. At the end of the battle, Madelyne released a strong wave of psionic energy with which she planned to destroy everyone present and herself. The members of X-Men and X-Factor managed to survive thanks to teamwork. For her part, the portion of the Phoenix that Madelyne possessed abandoned her and returned to Jean to protect her. Goblin Queen died and Jean recovered the part of her soul that the Phoenix Force had mistakenly given to Madelyne. Sometime later, Nate Grey, Jean and Scott's son from another reality, arrived in the 616 universe and found Madelyne's spirit in the astral plane and unconsciously created a new body for her. Madelyne, who remembered very little of her past, joined the Hellfire Club as Black Rook. Madelyne's memory was finally fully restored. He searched for Nate Grey, but along the way he discovered that, although he now possessed a body, she was still dead and her soul trapped elsewhere. He then found Nate with Jean Grey. In a battle, Nate chose to side with Jean and not her. Nate and Jean discovered that Madelyne was a psionic ghost. X-Man attempted to reabsorb her, but failed as Goblin Queen had become a being independent of him. Sometime later, Maddie looked for her son, who had become Cable. She told him her story of origin and proposed that they join forces to conquer the world, but Cable refused. Madelyne returned and created a new version of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and used them to access the X-Mansion to transfer her mind into the body of the deceased Jean Grey. Scott, who imagined something like this would happen one day, hid Jean's true body, so Madelyne entered a different body that ended up rejecting her spirit. When the Phoenix split into 5 members of the X-Men, Mr. Sinister created several clones of Madelyne that he planned to use to extract the Phoenix's power from its hosts. These clones had no mind of their own and followed Sinister's every order. In the end, the clones managed to defeat the hosts, but the Phoenix could not tolerate the existence of these beings and decided to eliminate them. Madelyne was brought back to life by Lady Deathstrike. With the help of the Enchantress, he brought Madelyne's soul from the afterlife and placed it in a body, which had been genetically altered to resemble Jean Grey. In the end, the X-Men defeated Deathstrike's Brotherhood of Mutants, but allowed Maddie to escape. When the nation of Krakoa was formed, all mutants, even villains, were invited to join this nation. All except Madelyne. Resentful, she decided to destroy the nation by excluding her. She created several clones of the Marauders and used them to devastate the island. Goblin Queen was shot by Krakoa and died in Havoc's arms, begging him to remember her as a human being. Madelyne's resurrection was later ruled out by the Silent Council of Krakoa due to Krakoa's laws prohibiting the presence of clones. Havoc, with the help of Emma Frost, managed to convince them to resurrect Madelyne. Upon returning, Goblin Queen allied herself with Ben Reilly, one of Spider-Man's clones, to destroy Peter and the X-Men. They both met in Limbo when Ben's soul was trapped there. They both identified with each other due to the fact that they were clones and saw their lives ruined because of their originals. They convinced Eddie Brock to help them in their plan, in exchange for Madelyne helping him find his son Dylan. Both clones attacked Manhattan with an army of demons, prompting Spider-Man and the X-Men to intervene. Cyclops, Havoc, Jean and Magik went to Limbo to stop the demons, but were confronted by Goblin Queen. She captured them and planned to access Jean's mind to take the memories she had about Nathan's upbringing. Jean agreed to share her memories in exchange for Madelyne ending the fight. She agreed and tried to convince Ben to leave Spider-Man, but he refused and betrayed Madelyne. Ben stole his powers and became the new ruler of Limbo. In the end, Venom, Spider-Man, Madelyne and the X-Men worked together to stop Ben and he was locked inside Limbo. With this, Madelyne proved she could redeem herself and has even worked alongside the X-Men ever since, but with the Krakoa era coming to an end, it's hard to know whose side Madelyne Pryor will be on in the future.